German Shepherd was shivering beside a melted snowman. What baby did next left? Everyone in tears. The morning Tommy found the dog would change everything, but nobody could have predicted how a melted snowman would uncover a secret that someone was willing to kill for. Like and subscribe if stories of courage touch your heart, and comment below to tell us where you're watching from. Tommy pressed his small nose against the cold window, his breath creating little clouds on the glass. Something was wrong. Yesterday's snowman, the one he'd spent all afternoon building with sticks for arms and his mother's old scarf wrapped around its neck, was gone. Not knocked over or broken apart, but melted into a sad puddle of water that reflected the pale morning sun. The unexpected warm spell had stolen his frozen friend overnight. "No, no, no," the 5-year-old whispered, his voice cracking with the kind of heartbreak only children feel for lost creations. He didn't wait for his mother to wake up. Emma worked double shifts at the hospital and the diner, and Sunday mornings were her only chance to sleep past dawn. Tommy knew better than to wake her for something she'd call just snow. His dinosaur slippers made soft padding sounds against the wooden floor as he crept through the quiet house. The front door's lock clicked open with the special trick Emma had shown him for emergencies only. This felt like an emergency to Tommy. His snowman was gone, and he needed to say goodbye to whatever was left. The morning air hit his face, warmer than it should be for February, carrying the smell of wet earth and melting ice. Tommy's pajamas, the ones with rocket ships that were getting too small, offered little protection against the dampness, but he didn't care. He ran across the yard, his feet splashing through shallow puddles until he reached the spot where his snowman had stood guard. That's when he saw it. A German Shepherd, massive even while lying down, was curled beside the puddle of melted snow. The dog's body shook with violent shivers that seemed to rattle through every bone. Its fur, which might have once been a proud black and tan, was matted with mud and something darker that Tommy's young mind didn't recognize as dried blood. Tommy froze. His mother had taught him about strange dogs, about being careful and calling for help. But something in the way this dog lay there, pressed against the cold ground where the snowman had been, made Tommy's chest hurt in a way he couldn't explain. The dog's eyes opened, brown, deep, and carrying a weight that even a 5-year-old could recognize as sadness. Those eyes locked onto Tommy's face, and the shivering stopped for just a moment, as if the animal was holding its breath. "Are you cold?" Tommy asked, his voice barely louder than the morning breeze. "My snowman melted." "Were you friends with him?" The German Shepherd's tail moved once, just barely, more of a twitch than a wag. Tommy took a step closer, then another. The dog didn't growl or bare its teeth. Instead, it lowered its head back to the ground, as if even that small movement had exhausted whatever energy remained. Tommy could see the collar now, leather and worn, but no tags dangled from it. Just empty rings where identification should have been. The boy's eyes traveled over the dog's body, noticing how its ribs showed through the matted fur, how its breathing seemed to catch and struggle with each inhale. "You're hungry," Tommy said, with the certainty of a child who understood simple truths. "Wait here. Don't leave, okay? Promise you won't leave." The dog's eyes followed him as he ran back to the house, those dinosaur slippers now soaked through and squeaking with each step. Tommy knew where his mother kept the emergency food, the stuff she saved for when money got really tight before payday. He climbed onto the kitchen counter, his small fingers working to open the cabinet where she thought he couldn't reach. The peanut butter sandwich he'd saved from yesterday's lunch sat wrapped in plastic, his favorite, with grape jelly making purple streaks through the creamy brown. Tommy grabbed it along with a bowl, filling it with water from the sink. The bowl sloshed as he carried it carefully back outside, determination written across his young face. The German Shepherd hadn't moved. If anything, it seemed to have curled tighter into itself, as if trying to disappear into the wet ground. Tommy set the bowl down first, the water rippling and catching the morning light. The dog's eyes tracked the movement, but it didn't lift its head. "It's okay," Tommy whispered, unwrapping the sandwich with careful fingers. "I'm not very big either. People think you can't do important things when you're small. But we can. We're brave, right?" He broke the sandwich into small pieces, placing them close enough for the dog to reach without having to move much. The German Shepherd's nose twitched, catching the scent of peanut butter. Slowly, painfully, it lifted its head and took the smallest piece, chewing as if even that simple action required enormous effort. "What's your name?" Tommy asked, settling cross-legged on the wet ground, not caring that his pajamas were getting soaked through. "I'm Tommy. I live here with my mom. She's sleeping because she works all the time. She says we have to be strong because it's just us now. My dad went to heaven when I was 3. I don't really remember him, but Mom says he was brave. Are you brave?" The dog took another piece of sandwich, this time with slightly more interest. Its eyes never left Tommy's face, as if memorizing every feature of this small human who sat in the mud offering food and conversation. "I'm going to call you Scout," Tommy decided. "Like the boy in that old movie Mom likes. He was brave and helped people. You look like you help people. Or maybe you used to?" Scout's ear twitched at the name, the first real response beyond basic survival instinct. Tommy noticed and smiled, the kind of pure, unguarded smile that only children possess. "Scout it is, then. You need to drink water, too. Mom says hydration is important. She learned that word at the hospital." As if understanding, Scout struggled to shift position, moving toward the water bowl. That's when Tommy saw the way the dog's back leg dragged, not bearing weight properly. There were marks around Scout's neck where the collar sat, raw places where fur had been rubbed away. "Someone hurt you," Tommy said, his voice dropping to barely a whisper. His small hand reached out, hovering just above Scout's head, not quite touching. "Someone was mean to you. That's not fair. Being mean is the worst thing you can be. Mom says so." Scout's eyes closed as Tommy's hand finally made contact, the gentlest touch on top of his broad head. The dog let out a sound, not quite a whine, more like a sigh that had been held for too long. "Tommy! Tommy, where are you?" Emma's voice cut through the morning air, panic threading through each syllable. Tommy turned to see his mother standing on the front porch, her robe hastily thrown over her pajamas, her blonde hair messy from sleep. "I'm here, Mom. I found a dog. He was friends with my Snowman." Emma's face went through several expressions in rapid succession, relief at seeing Tommy safe, confusion at his words, then concern as she took in the scene. Her 5-year-old son sitting in the mud beside a large German shepherd that looked like it had been through hell. "Tommy, get away from that dog right now," she said, trying to keep her voice calm while every maternal instinct screamed danger. "But Mom, he's hurt and hungry." His name is Scout. "Tommy, please, come here, slowly. He won't hurt me, Mom. Look, he's scared, like when I have bad dreams, but there's no one to hold him." Emma approached carefully, her bare feet picking through the wet grass. As she got closer, she could see what Tommy saw. This wasn't an aggressive animal. This was a dog that had given up, that was using its last energy just to exist. "Oh," she breathed, taking in the full picture. The protruding ribs, the matted fur, the way the dog didn't even lift its head as she approached. "Oh no! What happened to you? Can we keep him, Mom? Please? He doesn't have anyone." Emma knelt beside Tommy, her hand automatically checking her son for any injuries while her eyes assessed the dog. Scout watched her with those same deep brown eyes. No aggression, no fear, just a tired acceptance of whatever came next. "Tommy, honey, we can't just keep a dog, especially one this big. We can barely afford groceries some weeks, and dogs need food, vet care, medicine. But he'll die if we don't help him." Tommy's voice cracked, tears starting to roll down his cheeks. He was shivering by my melted snowman. Maybe he thought it was a person. Maybe he was lonely and thought he found a friend, but it melted. That's the saddest thing, Mom. That's the saddest thing in the whole world. Emma felt her heart crack a little. Tommy had been struggling since they had moved to this smaller house after his father's death. The nightmares, the anxiety when she left for work, the way he built elaborate stories for his stuffed animals because he had no friends in the neighborhood yet. "We can't keep him," she said gently, "but we can help him. We'll call the animal shelter, see if they can—" Scout moved then, sudden for an animal that had seemed barely alive moments before. His body shifted, placing itself between Tommy and Emma. Not aggressive, but protective. His eyes locked onto something behind Emma, and a low growl rumbled from his chest. Emma turned to see a van pulling up to their house. 2 men in dark clothing stepped out, their movements too coordinated, too purposeful. One of them held what looked like a catch pole, the kind animal control might use, but something felt wrong. Their van had no markings, no official insignia. "Morning, ma'am," the taller one called out, his smile not reaching his eyes. "We're looking for a German Shepherd that went missing from our facility. Military training center. Dangerous animal. We tracked him to this area." Scout's growl deepened, and Tommy's small hand buried itself in the dog's matted fur. "He's not dangerous," the boy said, his voice small but firm. "Son, you need to step away from that dog," the man said, moving closer. "He's trained for combat." "Unpredictable. We're here to help." Emma stood, placing herself between the men and Tommy. Every instinct she had was screaming. "Do you have identification? Documentation about this dog?" The men exchanged glances. "Ma'am, we need to secure the animal first, for everyone's safety." "He's hurt," Emma said. "He can barely stand. I don't think he's a danger to anyone." "Appearances can be deceiving with military animals," the shorter man said, pulling something from his pocket. Emma expected a badge or papers. Instead, she saw a syringe. "What is that?" she demanded. "Sedative. Standard protocol for recovering military assets. Assets, not dogs. Assets." Scout struggled to his feet, his injured leg trembling but holding. He positioned himself in front of Tommy, his head low, teeth showing now in a clear warning. "Mom," Tommy whispered, "they're the ones who hurt him. Look how scared he is." Emma saw it too. This wasn't an animal recognizing its handlers. This was an animal recognizing a threat. "I think you should leave," Emma said, her voice stronger now. "If this is really a military dog, then bring real military personnel, with proper documentation. Until then, get off my property." The taller man's fake smile disappeared. "Ma'am, you don't understand the situation. I understand enough. Leave, or I'm calling the police." "The police won't—" "My brother is a sheriff's deputy," Emma interrupted, pulling out her phone. "Jake Morrison. Would you like me to call him now?" The men hesitated. The shorter one reached for something in his jacket, and Scout lunged. Despite his injuries, despite the exhaustion, the German Shepherd moved with trained precision. His jaws clamped onto the man's wrist, not breaking skin, but holding with enough pressure to make him drop the syringe. "Scout, no!" Tommy cried out, but the dog held on, his eyes never leaving the other man who had taken a step back. "Call him off!" the man shouted, pain and fear breaking through his professional demeanor. "I don't control him," Emma said, her phone already dialing. "Jake, I need you at my house. Now, bring backup." The man Scout held tried to pull free, but the dog adjusted his grip, a warning growl vibrating through his clenched teeth. "Let him go," the taller man said, and for a moment Emma thought he was talking to Scout. Then she realized he was talking to his partner. "Let's go." "Now?" Scout released his grip the moment the men started backing away. They retreated to their van, the shorter one cradling his wrist, both of them staring at the dog with something that looked like fear mixed with rage. "This isn't over," the tall one called out as they got in the van. "That dog is property of the United States military. You're harboring stolen government property." "Then send the real military," Emma shot back, her arm around Tommy now, feeling Scout's warm presence against her leg. The van peeled away, tires squealing against the pavement. Scout watched until it disappeared around the corner, then his legs gave out. He collapsed onto the wet ground, his breathing labored, the brief burst of protective energy completely spent. "Scout!" Tommy dropped beside him, his small hands running over the dog's body. "Mom, he's really hurt. We have to help him." Emma knelt too, her fingers finding Scout's pulse, rapid and thready. The dog's eyes were still open, still aware, but fading. "Tommy, run inside, get towels, blankets, anything warm. Go." As Tommy ran, Emma studied Scout more carefully. This wasn't just exhaustion and hunger. There were puncture wounds on his neck, partially hidden by the collar, injection sites. They had drugged him, probably repeatedly. Scout's eyes found hers, and in them she saw something that made her decision. "We're not letting them take you," she whispered. "I don't know who you are or where you came from, but anyone that terrified of two thugs with a syringe needs protection, not capture." Jake's truck roared into the driveway just as Tommy returned with an armload of towels. Her brother stepped out, his off-duty weapon visible on his hip, his expression serious. "Emma, what's going on?" You sounded... He stopped, taking in the scene. Is that a military working dog? I don't know what he is, Emma said, but two men just tried to take him, and something about them felt all wrong. Jake, he protected Tommy. This dog, as hurt as he is, put himself between Tommy and those men. Jake knelt beside Scout, his experienced eyes taking in details Emma had missed. These are tactical injuries, he said quietly. Restraint marks, injection sites. This dog was held somewhere, probably for days. His hand hovered over Scout's collar. May I? Scout's eyes tracked to Jake's face, assessing. After a long moment, the dog's head dipped slightly, permission granted. Jake's fingers explored the collar carefully. There's something here. Under the leather, he pulled out a pocket knife, carefully cutting the stitching. A small electronic device fell into his palm, no bigger than a button. Is that a tracker? Emma asked. No, Jake said, his face grave. It's a recorder. Military grade, still active. He looked at Scout with new understanding. This dog was gathering intelligence. Emma, what exactly did those men say? Before she could answer, Scout's head lifted slightly, his nose pointing toward the garden shed at the back of the yard. A soft whine escaped his throat, urgent despite his weakness. What is it, boy? Tommy asked, following the dog's gaze. Is something there? Scout tried to stand but couldn't manage it. His paw scraped at the ground, pointing, insisting. He wants us to look, Tommy said with certainty. Mom, he's trying to tell us something. Jake stood. I'll check it out. Emma, take Tommy inside. No, Tommy said, his small voice firm. Scout needs me. He's scared. Emma started to argue, but something in her son's expression stopped her. A determination she'd never seen before, an echo of his father's stubborn courage. Okay, she said softly, but we stay together. Jake approached the shed carefully, his hand on his weapon. The structure was old, had come with the house when Emma bought it after David's death. She'd never used it, had planned to tear it down eventually. The door was locked, but the lock was new, much newer than the shed itself. Emma, do you have a key for this? No, I've never opened it. The previous owner said it was empty. Scout whined again, more urgently. His paw scraped the ground in a digging motion. Under, Tommy said suddenly. He means under, not inside. Jake circled the shed, then stopped at the back corner. The ground there was different, recently disturbed, though grass had started growing over it. Someone buried something here, he said. Recently. Maybe a month or two ago. Scout's tail moved, just once. Confirmation. Jake retrieved a shovel from Emma's garage and began digging carefully. It didn't take long. 2 feet down, his shovel hit something solid. A military ammunition box, weatherproof and locked. Jake, Emma said, her voice tight with worry. What is this? What have we gotten into? Her brother lifted the box carefully. It was heavy, something shifting inside. I don't know, but that dog led us right to it. Emma, those men who came for him, did they show any official identification? No, they said he was military property, but they had no badges, no papers. And Jake, they were going to sedate him. They had a syringe ready before they even tried to talk to us. Jake's expression darkened. We need to get Scout somewhere safe, and we need to open this box, but not here. Those men might come back, and next time they might not be so easily scared off. Dr. Peterson, Emma said suddenly, the veterinarian on Oak Street, she's a friend, she'd help. Good. Can Scout travel? They all looked at the German shepherd, who was watching them with those intelligent brown eyes. Slowly, painfully, he pushed himself to a sitting position, not standing, but ready. He's the bravest dog in the world, Tommy said, his small hand resting on Scout's head. Aren't you, Scout? Jake carefully lifted the ammunition box while Emma ran for her car keys. They fashioned a makeshift stretcher from a blanket, and together, Jake and Emma carried Scout to her old sedan. Tommy climbed in the back, Scout's head resting on his lap. As they pulled away from the house, Emma glimpsed a black SUV turning onto their street in her rearview mirror. Her hands tightened on the steering wheel. Jake, she said quietly, I see it. Take the back roads. I'll follow in my truck. The drive to the veterinary clinic felt like hours, though it was only minutes. Scout's breathing grew more labored, and Tommy sang softly to him, a lullaby Emma used to sing when Tommy was scared. "You're safe now, Scout. We won't let the bad man get you. My mom's really smart and Uncle Jake has a gun and doctor. Peterson helps all the animals. You're going to be okay." Dr. Peterson was just opening her clinic when they arrived. The older woman took one look at Scout and immediately went into professional mode. "Bring him straight back," she ordered, leading them to an examination room. "This dog's been through trauma. Multiple traumas from the look of it." As she examined Scout, her expression grew increasingly grim. Drugged repeatedly, restrained for extended periods, dehydration, malnutrition, and these injection sites. Someone was keeping him sedated. Why would anyone do this to a military working dog? "We don't know," Emma said, "but people came looking for him. Something's not right about any of this." Dr. Peterson inserted an IV line into Scout's leg, starting fluids and antibiotics. "There's a microchip," she said, running her scanner over Scout's shoulder. "But it's not reading properly. It's been damaged or scrambled somehow." Scout's eyes were growing heavy from exhaustion and the pain medication. "Doctor." Peterson had administered, but they tracked to the ammunition box Jake had brought in. "He led us to this," Jake explained. "It was buried behind Emma's shed." "Can we open it?" Emma asked. Jake examined the lock. "It's military grade, but..." He pulled out his multi-tool, working carefully. After several minutes, the lock clicked open. Inside, wrapped in waterproof material, they found several items that made them all freeze. Military identification tags reading Sergeant Marcus Webb. A photograph of a soldier in uniform with Scout beside him, both looking proud and strong. Several USB drives in protective cases, and a letter sealed in plastic. Emma's hands shook as she picked up the photograph. "I know him, Marcus Webb. He lived 3 houses down from us before he deployed. He used to wave when he walked Scout past our house. Tommy loved watching them." "I remember," Tommy exclaimed, "the soldier with the big dog." "They moved away, Mom. You said they went to help people far away." "He was deployed 18 months ago," Jake said, reading from a document in the box. "Says here he was part of a special operations unit, K9 handler." Emma opened the letter with trembling fingers, reading aloud, "If you're reading this, something has happened to me, and Scout has found his way to you. I chose your neighborhood specifically, trained Scout to recognize certain houses as safe points. The Morrisons at 42 Willow Street were my primary choice. Good people, a child who would understand. Scout isn't just a military working dog. He was part of a classified program investigating corruption within military contracting companies. We uncovered something massive. They're selling military weapons and intelligence to the highest bidder, using official channels to cover their tracks. The evidence is on these drives, but they're encrypted. Scout's microchip contains the decryption key, but only when he's calm and trusting. Stress or fear scrambles it, a failsafe I built in to prevent forced extraction. If Scout found you, it means they got to me. I'm either dead or they're making me wish I was. But Scout escaped just like I trained him to. He knows who to trust. Children, especially. He was trained to seek out innocence when threatened, to protect those who can't protect themselves. Please help him. The evidence on these drives can stop them, but more importantly, Scout deserves better than what they'll do to him if they catch him. He's not just a tool or an asset. He's my partner, my best friend, and the best soldier I've ever served with. There's a number on the back of this letter. Major Rebecca Stone. She's the only one in command I trust. Tell her, Echo November 77. She'll know what to do. Thank you for protecting him, Sergeant Marcus Webb. The room fell silent except for Scout's labored breathing and the steady drip of the IV. My God, Dr. Peterson whispered. This dog is evidence of something huge. Those men this morning, Emma said, her voice shaking. They weren't military. They were private contractors, Jake finished. Probably the same ones Webb was investigating. They must have held Scout after capturing Webb, trying to extract the information from his chip. But Scout's too smart, Tommy said, his young voice full of pride. He scrambled it so they couldn't get it. And then he escaped and came to find us. Scout's tail moved slightly at Tommy's words, even through his exhaustion. We need to call that Major, Jake said, reaching for his phone. Wait, Emma said. How do we know she's really trustworthy? Webb might have been wrong, or things might have changed. Before Jake could respond, Scout suddenly tensed. Despite the IV line, despite the sedation, he tried to rise, a warning growl rumbling from his chest. Through the clinic's front window, they could see vehicles pulling up. Not one or two, but 4 black SUVs surrounding the building. "They found us," Jake said, his hand moving to his weapon. "Everyone get to the back room, now." But it was too late. The front door burst open, and men in tactical gear poured in. Not the 2 from this morning, but a full team, weapons drawn. "Nobody move!" the lead man shouted. "We're here for the dog and any materials you've found. Cooperate and no one gets hurt." Scout, despite everything, managed to stand. He placed himself between Tommy and the armed men, his legs shaking, but his intent clear. "Please," Emma said, pulling Tommy against her. "There's a child here. Whatever this is about, please don't. The dog, the box, and any electronics, now." Jake stepped forward, his badge visible. "I'm a sheriff's deputy. You have no authority here. I need to see identification and warrants." The lead man smiled coldly. "Deputy Morrison, yes, we know who you are, who all of you are. Dr. Peterson, veterinarian, activist, tendency to ask inconvenient questions. Emma Morrison, widow, hospital worker, mother to Tommy, age 5. Would you like me to continue?" The threat was clear. They knew everything about them. Scout growled louder, and Tommy did something that shocked everyone. He stepped out from behind his mother, moving to stand beside Scout. "You're the bad guys," he said, his small voice carrying surprising strength. "The ones who hurt Scout, who hurt Sergeant Webb. You're bullies, and bullies always lose." The lead man actually laughed. "Kid's got spirit. Shame he's got no idea what he's involved in." "He's 5 years old," Emma said, her voice fierce with maternal protection. "Whatever this is, he has nothing to do with it." "He does now," the man replied. "You all do. So, here's what's going to happen. You're going to give us the dog and everything you found. Then you're going to forget this ever happened. You never saw us, never saw the dog, never found anything. Clear?" "And if we refuse?" Jake asked. The man's smile widened. "Deputy, you have a nice career. Miss Morrison has a son to raise. Dr. Peterson has a clinic that could easily fail a health inspection. Amazing what inspectors can find when they look hard enough." Scout took a step forward, his growl deepening. The men raised their weapons. "No!" Tommy threw his arms around Scout's neck. "Don't hurt him! He's already hurt. He's sick." The tableau held for a moment. Armed men, a wounded dog, and a small boy standing between them. Then Scout did something unexpected. He turned his head to look at Tommy, and in that look was a decision. The German Shepherd gently pulled free from Tommy's embrace and walked forward, each step obviously painful, toward the armed men. "Scout, no!" Tommy cried out, but Emma held him back. Scout stopped directly in front of the lead man and sat, his head high despite his exhaustion. It was a surrender, but somehow it didn't look like defeat. The man reached for Scout's collar, and that's when they heard it. Sirens, multiple sirens getting closer. "You called them?" The man snarled at Jake. "I didn't call anyone," Jake said, confused. The sirens grew louder, and through the window, they could see police cars, real ones with actual markings, surrounding the black SUVs. "Federal agents!" a voice boomed through a megaphone. "This is Major Rebecca Stone, U.S. Army Criminal Investigation Division. Everyone in the building, weapons down, hands visible." The tactical team looked at their leader, confusion evident even through their gear. "How?" he demanded. "How did they find us?" Scout's tail wagged once, and that's when Emma noticed it. The small device Jake had found in Scout's collar, the one they'd thought was a recorder. A small red light was blinking on it. "The recorder!" she breathed. It wasn't just recording. It was transmitting. The lead man's face contorted with rage. The dog triggered a beacon. "Not the dog, Doctor," Peterson said, a small smile on her face as she held up her phone. "I did. The moment you threatened a child, I activated it. Turns out Sergeant Webb left very specific instructions with Major Stone. If Scout ever showed up injured at a veterinary clinic, she was to be notified immediately." The door burst open again, but this time it was legitimate federal agents, weapons drawn, but badges visible. "Stand down!" Major Stone entered, a tall woman with steel-gray hair and eyes that missed nothing. Her gaze swept the room, taking in Scout's condition, Tommy's protective stance, and the ammunition box on the examination table. "Sergeant Marcus Webb's dog, I presume," she said, her voice softer than expected. "Scout?" Scout's entire demeanor changed. His tail wagged weakly, and he attempted to stand at attention despite his injuries. "At ease, soldier," Major Stone said gently. "Your mission's complete." She turned to the tactical team. "Gentlemen, you're under arrest for impersonating federal agents, attempted theft of classified materials, and conspiracy to commit murder, among other charges." "You have no proof," the lead man said, though his voice had lost its confidence. Major Stone smiled. "Scout's caller has been recording and transmitting for the last 6 hours. Every word you've said, every threat you've made. Sergeant Webb was nothing if not thorough." As the fake agents were led away in handcuffs, Major Stone approached Emma and Tommy. "Ma'am, I need to thank you. You and your son saved not just Scout, but potentially dozens of lives. The information Scout and Sergeant Webb gathered will shut down a major illegal arms dealing operation." "Sergeant Webb," Emma asked hesitantly. "Is he—" Major Stone's expression grew, somber. "Missing in action? 3 weeks ago. We believe he was captured during his investigation. Scout was with him. The fact that Scout escaped and made it here gives us hope that Marcus is still alive." Tommy, who had been listening intently, tugged on Major Stone's uniform. "Scout can find him. Dogs can always find their people. That's what my mom says." Major Stone knelt to Tommy's level. "You might be right, young man. Scout is a very special dog." She looked at Scout, who was leaning heavily against Dr. Peterson's examination table. "But first, he needs to heal." "He can stay with us," Tommy said immediately. "We'll take care of him." "Right, Mom?" Emma started to speak, to list all the reasons why they couldn't keep a military working dog. But then she looked at Scout. Despite everything, his eyes were on Tommy, watching the boy with an intensity that spoke of purpose found. "Major Stone," Emma said slowly, "what happens to Scout now? Technically, he should return to military custody. But given his injuries and the trauma he's experienced—" She paused, studying the connection between the dog and the child. "Sergeant Webb's letter mentioned that Scout was trained to protect innocents. It seems he's chosen his mission. Does that mean—" Tommy's eyes were wide with hope. "It means Scout needs a temporary foster home while he recovers and while we search for Sergeant Webb. It would need to be somewhere safe, with people Scout trusts." Major Stone's eyes moved between Emma and Tommy. "Interested?" Tommy's whoop of joy was answer enough, but it was Scout's reaction that sealed it. The exhausted, injured German shepherd managed to stand, walked the 2 painful steps to Tommy, and rested his great head against the boy's small chest. "I think Scout's made his choice, Doctor," Peterson said, wiping tears from her eyes. As Major Stone made arrangements and Dr. Peterson continued treating Scout's injuries, Tommy sat on the floor beside the examination table, his small hand never leaving Scout's fur. "I knew you were special," he whispered to the dog. "When I found you by my melted snowman, I knew you were magic. You're going to get better, and we're going to find Sergeant Webb, and everything's going to be okay." Scout's eyes, heavy with medication but still aware, found Tommy's face. His tail moved once, a promise, and a thank you combined. Emma watched her son with this remarkable dog and felt something shift in her chest. They'd started this morning with a melted snowman and found something extraordinary, a hero, a mystery, and perhaps a new family member. But she couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. Somewhere out there, Sergeant Marcus Webb was counting on them. And if Tommy was right, if Scout could find his person, then they had a mission of their own now. The morning sun climbed higher, warming the world outside the clinic. The unexpected thaw that had melted Tommy's snowman had brought Scout to them. Emma couldn't help but think it was meant to be, that sometimes the universe puts you exactly where you need to be, even if that place is kneeling in the mud beside a dying dog while your 5-year-old son offers him half a peanut butter sandwich. "Mom," Tommy said, looking up at her with those serious blue eyes. "Scout's going to need a bed and food and toys, and maybe a new collar, one without scary stuff in it." "Yes," Emma said, her decision made. "He'll need all of that, and probably more. And love," Tommy added. "Lots and lots of love. That's the most important medicine." Dr. Peterson smiled. Your son's right. Love might just be the best medicine Scout could get. As if in agreement, Scout's tail thumped once against the examination table, weak but determined, just like the spirit of the remarkable dog who'd found his way to a little boy who needed a friend, and in turn, found a family who needed a hero. The safe house Major Stone arranged was nothing like Emma expected. Instead of some cold government facility, it was a modest 2-story home on Maple Avenue, just 15 minutes from their damaged house. The kind of place that blended into the neighborhood so perfectly that no one would look twice. This belonged to a retired handler, Major Stone explained as she unlocked the door. He used it for dogs transitioning from military service. Fully fenced yard, reinforced doors, security system that connects directly to our response team. Scout limped through the doorway, his nose immediately working, cataloging every scent. Despite the medications Dr. Peterson had given him, he remained alert, checking each room with Tommy following close behind. "Look, Scout, there's a dog bed already here," Tommy called from the living room. "And toys." But Scout wasn't interested in comfort yet. He made his way to each window, memorizing sightlines, then tested the back door with his nose. Only when he'd completed his security check did he return to Tommy's side, finally allowing his legs to give out on the soft carpet. "He's still working," Major Stone observed. "Even injured, even exhausted, he's securing the perimeter." Emma set down the bag of medications Dr. Peterson had sent with them. "How long before those men's associates realize they've been arrested?" "Not long," Major Stone admitted, "which is why I'm posting agents outside. Discreetly, of course. And I need to debrief you all properly about what you found." Jake had arrived with boxes of Emma and Tommy's essentials from their smoke-damaged house. The fake contractors hadn't actually burned it, but the smoke grenades had left everything reeking and uninhabitable temporarily. "The USB drives," Jake said, pulling the ammunition box from his truck. "What's on them?" Major Stone's expression darkened. If Sergeant Webb's intelligence is accurate, evidence of a conspiracy that goes much deeper than arms dealing. These contractors weren't just selling weapons. They were selling soldiers' locations, patrol, routes, classified intelligence that got people killed. Emma's hand went to her mouth. Marcus knew this? He discovered it during his last deployment. Started investigating on his own when he realized how high up the corruption went. Some of his own commanders were involved. Tommy was sitting on the floor beside Scout, gently stroking the dog's ears. "Is that why they took him? Because he knew bad things about bad people?" Major Stone knelt beside the boy. "Yes, Tommy. Exactly that. Your friend Scout here helped gather the evidence. That's why those men wanted him so badly. But Scout's smarter than them," Tommy said proudly. "He scrambled his chip so they couldn't get the information." "About that," Major Stone said, "we need to access that chip to decrypt the drives, but from what Webb wrote, Scout needs to be calm and trusting for it to work." Dr. Peterson, who had insisted on coming to check Scout's IV line, spoke up. "He needs at least 48 hours of recovery before we attempt anything stressful. His body's been through severe trauma." Scout's eyes were closed, but his breathing had steadied. Tommy had curled up beside him, the boy's small body pressed against the dog's side. "Tommy, sweetie," Emma said softly, "let Scout rest." "He sleeps better when I'm close," Tommy insisted. "I can feel it. He stops shaking when I'm here." It was true. The tremors that had racked Scout's body had calmed the moment Tommy settled beside him. Major Stone's phone buzzed. She stepped away to answer, her face growing increasingly grim as she listened. When she returned, her expression made Emma's stomach drop. "What is it?" Jake asked. "One of the arrested contractors just offered information in exchange for a deal. Marcus Webb is alive." Emma gasped, and even Scout's eyes opened at the mention of his handler's name. "Where?" Jake demanded. "Being held at a private facility about 200 miles north. The contractor says they've been trying to break him, make him reveal where Scout went and how to access the chip." "We have to rescue him," Tommy said, jumping to his feet. "It's not that simple," Major Stone said carefully. "The facility is heavily guarded, and if they know we're coming, they might—" She didn't finish, but the implication was clear. Scout struggled to stand, a whine escaping his throat. His eyes fixed on Major Stone with an intensity that was almost human. "I know, boy," she said softly. "We'll get him back. But we need a plan, and we need you healthy. Over the next 2 days, the house became a strange mixture of recovery ward and command center. Major Stone's team worked in the converted garage, analyzing the partially corrupted data they could access from the drives. Scout grew stronger with each passing hour, Tommy never leaving his side, except for bathroom breaks. Emma watched her son with wonder. The boy who'd been having nightmares since his father's death now slept peacefully beside a military attack dog. The child, who'd been too shy to make friends at his new school, was confidently telling federal agents about Scout's preferences and needs. He doesn't like his medicine mixed with peanut butter, Tommy informed a bemused agent. He prefers it in cheese. And he won't eat if his bowl is too close to the wall. He needs to be able to see all the exits while he eats. How do you know all that? The agent asked. Tommy shrugged. He tells me, not with words, but I understand. On the second night, Emma woke to find Tommy's bed empty. Panic shot through her until she heard voices from downstairs. She found her son sitting with Scout in the living room, moonlight streaming through the window. I know you miss him, Tommy was saying to Scout. I miss my dad too, but sometimes the people we miss come back in different ways. Maybe Sergeant Webb will come back. We just have to be brave until then. Scout's tail thumped once, and he licked Tommy's face. Tommy, Emma said softly. It's 3 a.m. Scout had a bad dream, Tommy explained. He was whimpering. Dreams about the bad place, I think. Emma sat beside them, her hand finding Scout's head. The dog leaned into her touch, accepting comfort from this small family that had taken him in. Mom, Tommy said quietly, what if we can't find Sergeant Webb? What happens to Scout? I don't know, baby. I won't let them take him away. He belongs with us now. Emma wanted to warn him about getting too attached, about the reality that Scout was military property, but looking at the two of them together, she couldn't bring herself to dim that hope. The next morning brought unexpected visitors. Dr. Peterson arrived for Scout's checkup, but she wasn't alone. A man in his 60s, weathered and walking with a slight limp, accompanied her. This is Robert Chen, she explained. He used to train military working dogs. Retired now, but I thought he might help. Robert approached Scout slowly, his movements deliberate and respectful. Scout watched him warily until the man did something unexpected. He sat on the floor, turned his body sideways to avoid direct eye contact, and simply waited. After several minutes, Scout stood and approached, sniffing carefully. Whatever he smelled seemed to satisfy him, because his tail wagged slightly. You're Marcus Webb's partner, Robert said quietly. I trained Marcus. Years ago? Good soldier? Better man? Scout's whole body responded to Marcus's name, alert and hopeful. I know where they're keeping him, Robert continued, and everyone in the room froze. The facility. I know it because I helped design the security protocols. Back when I thought we were the good guys. Major Stone stepped forward. Mr. Chen, if you have information— I have more than information, Robert interrupted. I have access codes, guard rotations, blind spots in their surveillance. He looked at Scout. I've been waiting for the right moment to make amends for my part in creating that place. This dog finding his way here? That's a sign. It's still too dangerous, Major Stone said. We can't risk— Scout could find him, Tommy interrupted. Everyone turned to look at the 5-year-old. That's what he's trained for, right? Finding people? He found us when he needed help. He can find Sergeant Webb. Robert studied Tommy with interest. The boy's not wrong. Scout's trained in tracking and recovery. Even injured, his nose is worth more than a dozen agents. He's too weak, Doctor, Peterson protested. The stress could kill him. Scout walked to the door, scratching at it with one paw. When no one moved, he looked back at them and barked once, sharp and commanding. I don't think he's asking permission, Jake observed. Major Stone made a decision that would have ended her career if her superiors knew. We go tonight, small team, in and out before they know what hit them. I'm going, Emma said immediately. Emma, no, Jake started. Tommy needs me here, but Scout needs someone he trusts. He won't work with strangers. She looked at Major Stone. You know I'm right. The planning took all day. Robert drew detailed schematics from memory, marking guard positions and camera angles. Major Stone brought in 2 operators she trusted absolutely, men who'd served with Marcus and wanted him back as badly as Scout did. As the sun set, they prepared to leave. Tommy stood at the door, his small face set with determination. "I want to come," he said. "Absolutely not," Emma said firmly. "You're staying here with Uncle Jake and Doctor Peterson." "But Scout needs me." Scout walked over to Tommy, pressing his large head against the boy's chest. For a moment, they stood like that, boy and dog communicating silently. Then Scout stepped back and walked to Emma's side. "He says I have to stay," Tommy said, tears rolling down his cheeks. "He says his job is to protect me, and he can't do that if I'm there." Emma knelt beside her son. "You're the bravest boy I know. Scout will come back, with Sergeant Webb." "Promise?" Emma couldn't make that promise, but Tommy's eyes demanded hope. "They'll do everything they can." The facility sat like a cancer in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by forest and razor wire. From their position on the ridge, Emma could see why Marcus's captors had chosen it. No neighbors to hear screams, no witnesses to ask questions. Scout stood beside her, no longer the broken dog she'd found by the melted snowman. Despite his healing injuries, he radiated purpose. The tactical vest Major Stone had fitted him with bore his military designation. K-9 Unit, Echo 7. "Guard change in 6 minutes, Robert whispered through their earpieces. "Remember, southeast corner has a 12-second blind spot when they rotate." Scout's nose was working constantly, sorting through the scents carried on the night wind. Suddenly, his whole body went rigid. A low whine escaped his throat. "He's got something," Emma whispered. Scout looked at her, then at the facility. His. Message clear. Marcus was in there. "On my mark," Major Stone commanded. They moved like shadows. Scout led, his dark fur invisible in the night. Despite his limp, he navigated the terrain silently, pausing at the exact moments Robert had predicted to avoid cameras. The fence was their first obstacle. Major Stone produced wire cutters, but Scout had other ideas. He moved along the fence line until he found what he was looking for, a drainage culvert that ran under the barrier. It was barely big enough for a human to crawl through. "Smart dog," one of the operators murmured. They crawled through, Emma's heart pounding so loud she was sure the guards would hear it. But Scout moved with confidence, leading them toward a service entrance Robert had marked. The access code worked. They were in. The corridor was sterile, fluorescent lights humming overhead. Scout's nose led them deeper into the facility, past empty cells and interrogation rooms that made Emma's skin crawl. Then Scout stopped. His hackles rose and a growl rumbled from deep in his chest. Around the corner, voices approached. "2 guards," Major Stone whispered. "We need to—" Scout moved before anyone could stop him. He rounded the corner and Emma heard surprised shouts, then thuds. When they followed, they found 2 guards unconscious on the floor, Scout standing over them. "Non-lethal takedown," Major Stone observed with appreciation. He disabled them without killing. That's advanced training. Scout was already moving again, more urgently now. He led them down a stairwell to a sub-level that wasn't on Robert's schematics. "This wasn't here when I worked with them," Robert said through the earpiece. "You're going in blind." The sub-level was different, older. The walls were concrete, the air thick with the smell of damp and something else. Blood. Fear. Scout stopped at a heavy metal door. He scratched at it, whining desperately. Major Stone checked her device. 2 heat signatures inside, one standing, one on the ground. Emma's blood ran cold. They were too late. "Breach on 3, Major Stone ordered. But Scout didn't wait. He threw his full weight against the door, and somehow, impossibly, the lock gave way. The door burst open, and Scout rushed in. The room beyond was a nightmare. Chains on the walls, dark stains on the concrete floor, and in the corner, barely recognizable, was Marcus Webb. He was alive, but barely. Bruises covered every visible inch of skin. He was chained to the wall, his head hanging forward, unconscious or worse. A man in a suit stood over him, syringe in hand. He spun at their entrance, raising the needle like a weapon. Scout didn't hesitate. He launched himself at the man, jaws clamping on the wrist holding the syringe. The man screamed, dropping the needle, trying to shake Scout off. "Stand down," Major Stone commanded, weapon drawn. The man fell to his knees, Scout maintaining his grip. Only when Major Stone had him in restraints did Scout release him and rush to Marcus. The reunion broke Emma's heart. Scout pressed against his handler, whining and licking Marcus's face, trying to wake him. Marcus's eyes fluttered open, unfocused and confused. Scout? His voice was barely a whisper, raw from screaming. You came back? Scout's tail wagged frantically as he pressed closer, supporting Marcus's weight. We need medical evacuation now, Major Stone said into her radio. But Marcus was shaking his head weakly. No, trap. They knew you'd come. As if his words triggered it, alarms began blaring. Red lights bathed the corridor in hellish light. Everyone out! Now! Major Stone commanded. They cut Marcus's chains, and the two operators lifted him between them. He was in no condition to walk, barely conscious. Scout stayed pressed against his leg, guiding them even as the facility erupted into chaos around them. Guards poured into the corridors. Gunfire erupted. Major Stone and her team returned fire, pushing forward. Emma found herself in the middle of a war zone, her only focus on following Scout. They were pinned down near the stairwell when Scout did something extraordinary. He broke away from Marcus, racing back the way they'd come. The guards turned their weapons on him, but he was too fast, using doorways and corners for cover. What's he doing? Emma shouted over the gunfire. Then she heard it. A massive crash from somewhere deeper in the facility. Then another. Scout had found something, destroyed something. The lights flickered and died. Emergency power kicked in, but it was dimmer, casting everything in shadows. In the confusion, Scout reappeared, leading them down a different route. He'd memorized the layout, found an alternate path. They followed him through maintenance corridors and storage rooms, avoiding the main confrontation. They burst out of a loading dock into the night. Vehicles screeched toward them, but these bore military markings. Real military. Major Stone's backup had arrived. As medics swarmed Marcus, Scout refused to leave his side. Even as they loaded him into the medical helicopter, Scout jumped in beside the stretcher. Ma'am, the dog, a medic started. The dog stays, Marcus whispered, his hand finding Scout's fur. He stays with me. Emma climbed in beside them, watching as Scout positioned himself carefully beside Marcus's stretcher, mindful of the IV lines and monitors. The dog's eyes never left his handler's face. You found good people, Marcus whispered to Scout. The letter? You found them. Scout's tail wagged once. Then he settled his head on Marcus's chest, careful of his injuries. Marcus's hand, swollen and bruised, rested on Scout's head. The boy, Marcus said, looking at Emma. Tommy, Scout told me, in his way. Protected him? Protected all of us, Emma confirmed. He's extraordinary. He's more than that, Marcus managed. The program, they did things, enhanced his intelligence, his problem solving. He understands more than any dog should. Sometimes, I think. He trailed off, exhaustion taking over. The flight to the military hospital was short, but tense. Marcus's vitals kept dropping, and the medics worked frantically. Through it all, Scout remained perfectly still, only the steady rise and fall of his breathing showing he was awake and alert. At the hospital, they tried to separate Scout from Marcus for treatment. Scout planted himself in the doorway, refusing to budge. It took Emma's gentle coaxing and a promise that she'd stay with Marcus to get Scout to accept treatment for his own injuries. Dr. Peterson met them there, having been called by Major Stone. She examined Scout thoroughly while Emma sat with Marcus in the ICU. 3 cracked ribs, severe bruising to his organs, signs of repeated electrical shock. The doctor treating Marcus listed grimly. Whatever they did to him, it's a miracle he survived. Through the window, Emma could see Scout in the veterinary treatment room, but his eyes were fixed on Marcus's room. Even sedated for x-rays, he fought to stay conscious, to keep watch. Tommy's voice crackled through Emma's phone on video call. Jake had set it up so Tommy could see Scout. Is he okay, Mom? Is Scout okay? Did he find Sergeant Webb? He found him, baby. They're both going to be okay. On the screen, Tommy's face crumpled with relief. I knew it. I knew Scout would save him. A commotion in the hallway drew Emma's attention. Men in suits, different from the contractors, with legitimate federal badges. We need to debrief Sergeant Webb immediately, one announced. He's in no condition, the doctor protested. Issues of national security supersede medical concerns. Scout appeared in the doorway, having somehow escaped the veterinary room, despite being partially sedated. He positioned himself between the agents and Marcus's room, his stance making his intention clear. "Control that animal," one agent ordered. "That animal just helped expose the largest military corruption scandal in decades," Major Stone said, appearing behind them. "And Sergeant Webb isn't speaking to anyone until he's stable. You don't have the authority?" "Actually, I do." She produced a document. "Direct orders from the Secretary of Defense. Sergeant Webb and K9 Echo 7 are under my protective custody until further notice." The agents retreated, but Emma could see this wasn't over. Whatever Marcus and Scout had uncovered, powerful people wanted it buried. Marcus woke fully the next morning, Scout still beside his bed. The dog had refused to leave even for food, so Emma had been hand-feeding him beside Marcus's bed. "Thank you," Marcus said to Emma, his voice stronger, "for saving him." The letter was a long shot. "I never really thought—" "Tommy found him, by our melted snowman. Scout was dying and Tommy just knew he needed help." Marcus's eyes filled with tears. "I trained him to find safe places, safe people. Children especially. In war zones, children are often the only pure things left." Scout could sense that purity, that innocence. "Tommy hasn't left the safe house. He's desperate to see you both." "Bring him," Marcus said immediately. "Please, I owe that boy everything." When Tommy arrived an hour later, his reunion with Scout was pure joy. The dog, despite his injuries, practically danced around the small boy, tail wagging so hard his whole body shook. But when Tommy approached Marcus's bed, he grew serious. "You're Scout's person," he said solemnly. "He missed you so much. He had bad dreams about you being hurt." Marcus's voice caught. "He's my best friend. My partner." Tommy studied Marcus with those two wise 5-year-old eyes. "He can love both of us, you know. Dogs have really big hearts, especially Scout." Marcus looked at Scout, who was now positioned perfectly between Tommy and Marcus's bed, his attention split between them. "You're right," Marcus said softly. "He does have a big heart." Major Stone entered with news. "The USB drives are fully decrypted. The evidence is overwhelming. 17 military contractors, 6 commanding officers, and at least 3 Defense Department officials are being arrested as we speak." "It's over?" Marcus asked. "This part is. But there's going to be a long legal process. You'll need to testify. And Scout—" She paused. "There's debate about what happens to him." "What do you mean?" Emma asked, her protective instincts flaring. "Some want him returned to active duty. Others think he's too valuable for research, want to study the enhancements from the program. And then there's the matter of his bond with Tommy." Scout moved closer to Tommy, as if understanding the conversation. "He's not a lab rat," Marcus said firmly. "And after what he's been through, active duty would be cruel." "I agree," Major Stone said, "which is why I'm recommending medical retirement with a very specific placement." She pulled out official papers. "Joint custody. Sergeant Webb maintains official ownership for military purposes, but Scout resides with the Morrison family when Sergeant Webb is deployed or recovering." Tommy's eyes went wide. "Really? Scout can stay with us?" "If your mom agrees," Major Stone said. Emma looked at Scout, at Tommy's hopeful face, at Marcus's encouraging nod. "Of course he can stay." The paperwork was complex, but within hours it was official. Scout would live with Emma and Tommy, with Marcus having full visitation rights and the ability to reclaim Scout if his military status changed. That evening, as the sun set over the hospital, they all gathered in Marcus's room. Scout lay between Tommy and Marcus's bed, finally relaxed, finally safe. The enhanced intelligence that Marcus had mentioned showed in the dog's eyes as he watched over his humans. "You know," Marcus said to Tommy, "Scout's going to need special training to adjust to civilian life. Would you like to help with that?" Tommy nodded eagerly. "I'll teach him how to play fetch. And how to not. Be scared of the vacuum cleaner." Marcus laughed, the first real laugh Emma had heard from him. "I think he'd like that." But even in this moment of peace, Emma couldn't shake the feeling that their story wasn't over. The men they'd exposed had resources, connections, and Scout still carried secrets in his enhanced mind that others would want. As if sensing her thoughts, Scout lifted his head, ears swiveling toward the window. In the distance, a car had parked across from the hospital, its occupants watching. Scout's low growl was a warning. The danger wasn't over. It had just changed shape. Marcus's hand found Scout's collar, and his eyes met Emma's. They both understood. This was not an ending, but a transformation. Scout had brought them together for a reason. And whatever came next, they would face it as a family. Tommy, oblivious to the tension, continued chattering to Scout about all the things they'd do together. The dog's tail wagged at the boy's enthusiasm, but his eyes remained watchful, protective. A warrior still, even in peace. A guardian who'd found his purpose not in war, but in protecting a small boy who'd offered him half a sandwich by a melted snowman. The enhancement program had tried to create the perfect military weapon, but instead, they'd created something far more powerful. A dog capable of love so deep, it could transcend training, overcome torture, and bring together strangers into a family. As night fell over the hospital, Scout positioned himself where he could see both the door and window. Tommy curled against his side, Marcus's hand resting on his head. Whatever threats lingered in the darkness would have to go through him first. And Scout, the German shepherd who'd survived the unsurvivable, who'd found his way home through impossible odds, was ready. The melted snowman that had brought them together was long gone, but what had grown in its place was stronger than ice, warmer than spring, and fierce enough to face whatever shadows still hunted them. The car outside the hospital hadn't moved in 3 days. Scout noticed it first, of course, his enhanced perception picking up patterns that others missed. Every time someone approached Marcus's room, the German shepherd's eyes would flick to the window, checking if the watchers were still there. "They're not giving up," Marcus said quietly to Major Stone during one of her visits. He was stronger now, able to sit up, though his body still bore the brutal evidence of his captivity. "Different agency," Major Stone confirmed. "CIA, possibly NSA. They want to know about the enhancement program. Scout's living proof it worked." Tommy was sitting on the floor, carefully brushing Scout's fur with gentle strokes. The boy had become Scout's unofficial therapy, the only thing that could calm the dog when his hypervigilance kicked into overdrive. "They can't take him," Tommy said, not looking up from his task. "Scout chose us. That means something." Major Stone's expression softened. "You're right, Tommy. It does mean something. But these people don't care about what Scout chooses." Emma felt her protective instincts flare. "So what do we do?" "We get ahead of it," Marcus said, wincing as he shifted position. "The enhancement program, everything they did to Scout and the others, we go public with it." "That's classified at levels I can't even access," Major Stone warned. "Not anymore." Marcus pulled out a small device from under his pillow, something he'd kept hidden, even from the nurses. "Insurance policy. Everything about the program, recorded by Scout's enhanced memory and translated through our neural link." Everyone stared at him. Emma found her voice first. "Neural link?" Marcus nodded grimly. "Part of the enhancement. Scout and I can share sensory information, emotions, sometimes even thoughts. It's not telepathy exactly, more like understanding beyond words. That's how he knew to find Tommy. I was thinking about safe places, innocent souls, while they tortured me." Scout felt it all. Scout moved to Marcus's bedside, pressing his nose into his handler's hand. The connection between them was almost visible, a communication deeper than any normal human-animal bond. If that technology exists, Major Stone trailed off, the implications staggering. "It's why they want Scout so badly. He's not just evidence of the program. He's the prototype for something they want to weaponize further." Marcus looked at Tommy, who was listening with wide eyes. But Scout chose differently. He chose to protect rather than destroy. The door burst open, making everyone jump. But it was Jake, Emma's brother, his face flushed with urgency. "We have a problem," he said. "There's a court order. Some judge is demanding Scout be surrendered for scientific evaluation in the interest of national security." Scout's growl rumbled through the room, and Tommy immediately wrapped his arms around the dog's neck. "No!" "They can't take him." "The order goes into effect tomorrow morning," Jake continued. "My captain says his hands are tied. Federal jurisdiction." Marcus tried to stand, his legs shaking. "Over my dead body." "That might be their backup plan," Major Stone said grimly. She pulled out her phone, already making calls. I need to reach the Secretary of Defense now. But Emma had a different idea forming. She looked at the device Marcus had shown them, then at Scout, then at her son's determined face. What if we made it impossible for them to take Scout quietly? She said. What if everyone knew? Emma, that's dangerous, Jake started. Everything about this is dangerous, but they rely on secrecy, right? These shadow programs, these enhanced experiments. What if we took that away? Tommy looked up at his mother with admiration. Like when the teacher does something unfair and you tell the principal? Exactly like that, baby, but bigger. Marcus and Major Stone exchanged glances. You're talking about going to the media, Marcus said. I'm talking about protecting our family, Emma replied firmly, because that's what we are now. Family Scout walked over to Emma, sitting beside her and leaning his considerable weight against her leg. It was approval, support, and protection all at once. That night, they put the plan into motion. Marcus, despite his injuries, recorded everything. The enhancement program, the neural link technology, the corruption Scout had helped expose. But more than that, he told Scout's story. A dog trained to be a weapon who chose to be a guardian. A soldier who refused to abandon his mission even under torture. A friend who crossed impossible distances to save the person he loved. Tommy insisted on adding his part, telling the camera about finding Scout by the melted snowman, how the dog had protected them from the bad men, how Scout had nightmares just like people and needed hugs to feel better. Scout's not just a special dog, Tommy said, looking directly into the camera with that earnest intensity only children possess. He's a hero. And heroes shouldn't be locked in labs. They should be with families who love them. Dr. Peterson, who'd been treating Scout since the beginning, provided medical testimony about the dog's injuries and recovery. What I've observed goes beyond training or conditioning. This animal makes moral choices. He evaluates situations ethically. That's not enhancement. That's evolution. They uploaded everything simultaneously to multiple platforms, sent copies to every major news outlet, and Major Stone used her contacts to ensure it reached people in power who still had integrity. By dawn, the story had exploded across the internet. # Save Scout was trending globally. Videos of Tommy and Scout together, the boys singing lullabies to calm the dog's nightmares, had been viewed millions of times. The response was immediate and overwhelming. The hospital was surrounded not by federal agents but by news vans and protesters demanding Scout's freedom. Veterans organizations mobilized, declaring that Scout had served his country and deserved retirement, not experimentation. The judge who'd signed the surrender order suddenly found himself under intense scrutiny. Within hours, the order was under review, then quietly rescinded. But the victory felt hollow when Marcus collapsed that afternoon, his body finally succumbing to the damage from weeks of torture. As alarms blared and medical staff rushed in, Scout refused to leave his side, using his body to create space for the doctors while maintaining contact with Marcus. "Don't you dare die," Emma heard Tommy whisper to Marcus as they were pushed into the hallway. "Scout needs you. We all need you." For 3 agonizing hours, Marcus was in surgery. Internal bleeding they had missed, damage that had been masked by his determination to protect Scout. The German shepherd paced the hallway like a caged wolf, his distress palpable. Tommy sat against the wall, and Scout would pause in his pacing, to check on the boy, then resume his vigil. "He knows," Tommy said quietly to his mother. "He can feel what's happening to Marcus." The neural link, Emma realized. Scout was experiencing his handler's fight for survival in real time. When the surgeon finally emerged, exhausted but smiling, Scout knew before she spoke. His tail wagged once, and he sat, the tension leaving his body. "He's stable," the doctor announced. "It was close, but he's a fighter." "Like his dog," Tommy said proudly. Marcus's recovery was slow but steady. The media attention had an unexpected benefit. It brought support from everywhere. Fellow veterans, dog trainers, families who'd been helped by military working dogs. The small hospital room became a gathering place for people whose lives had been touched by the bond between soldiers and their K9 partners. One visitor stood out. A young girl, maybe 12, with a service dog of her own. She approached Tommy and Scout cautiously. "My dog was trained by Sergeant Webb," she said quietly. before Scout. Her name is Luna. She helps with my seizures. Luna and Scout sniffed each other with the careful respect of working dogs. Then Scout did something remarkable. He lay down, making himself smaller, less intimidating, and allowed Luna to approach Tommy. "He's teaching her," the girl's mother said in amazement. "Luna's always been skittish around children, but Scout's showing her it's safe." It was then that Emma understood the full scope of what Scout represented. Not just an enhanced military dog, but a bridge between the warrior and the healer, the protector and the nurturer. Major Stone arrived that evening with news that changed everything. "The enhancement program is being shut down," she announced. "Full congressional investigation. Everyone involved in the illegal experimentation is being prosecuted." She looked at Scout with deep respect. "And all enhanced K9s are being retired with full honors and lifetime medical care." "How many others are there?" Marcus asked weakly from his bed. "7 confirmed still alive. Scout's the most advanced, the most successful." She paused. "They want to study him, but not in a lab. They're proposing a partnership. Scout would help train the next generation of military working dogs, teaching them his methods, his judgment, voluntary of course, with full autonomy to refuse any request." Scout looked at Marcus, then at Tommy, then back to Major Stone. He walked over to Tommy and sat beside the boy, his choice clear. "He'll help," Tommy translated with confidence, "but he lives with us. That's not negotiable." Major Stone smiled. "I told them you'd say that." 3 weeks later, Marcus was released from the hospital. He was moving into a small house just 2 streets over from Emma and Tommy, close enough to maintain his bond with Scout, but giving the dog the stable family life he'd earned. The first night in their rebuilt home, Emma found Tommy and Scout in the backyard. The boy was building another snowman, even though it was too warm for the snow to last. "It's going to melt again," she said gently. "I know," Tommy replied, adding stick arms to his creation. "But that's okay. Scout taught me that sometimes things have to melt and change to bring people together." Scout watched the snowman construction with what Emma could only describe as approval. When Tommy finished, the dog walked over and gently placed one of his toys, a worn tennis ball, at the snowman's base. "An offering?" Emma asked. "A promise," Tommy corrected. "Scout's promising to protect our family, even when things melt and change." That night, as Emma tucked Tommy into bed with Scout curled protectively on the floor beside him, her son asked a question that had been bothering him. "Mom, why did Scout choose us? Out of all the houses, all the people, why us?" Emma thought about it, remembering that morning that felt like a lifetime ago. Her exhausted child in rocket ship pajamas, a melting snowman, and a dying dog who'd refused to give up. "Maybe," she said softly, "he knew we needed saving too. Not from bad guys or danger, but from being alone, from being sad. Scout didn't just need someone to help him, he needed someone who needed him back." Tommy considered this, then smiled. "We needed each other?" "Exactly, baby. We needed each other." As she turned off the light, Scout raised his head, his enhanced intelligence evident in his knowing gaze. He'd understood every word, and his tail thumped once in agreement. The months that followed brought a new normal. Scout worked with Marcus 3 days a week, helping train younger military dogs, teaching them not just tactics but judgment, compassion, and when to disobey orders that would harm innocents. The remaining days, he was simply Tommy's dog, playing fetch, going to school presentations, and sleeping beside the boy's bed. The neural link between Scout and Marcus remained, but something remarkable happened. Tommy began showing signs of understanding Scout in ways that went beyond normal human-animal communication. Not a full link, the doctors said, but something. Perhaps Scout's enhancement allowed him to form deeper connections with those he trusted. Perhaps Tommy's pure heart and lack of fear allowed him to receive what Scout was transmitting. "It doesn't matter how it works," Tommy said during one evaluation. "Scout talks to me, and I listen. That's what friends do." The other enhanced dogs were gradually located and retired, each finding homes with families who understood their special needs. Scout helped with each transition, somehow communicating to his fellow enhanced K9s that civilian life was not a downgrade but a reward. 1 year after the melted snowman brought them together, they held a ceremony. Not a military one, though Major Stone and Marcus's unit attended. Not a media event, though the story had touched millions. Just a family gathering in Emma's backyard. Marcus, walking without assistance now, though still bearing scars, presented Scout with a special collar. Not military issue, but leather crafted by a local artist, with a simple tag, Scout Morrison Webb, hero, friend, family. "You saved my life," Marcus said, his voice thick with emotion. "But more than that, you saved my soul. You reminded me that strength isn't about being a weapon, it's about choosing who to protect." Scout accepted the collar with dignity, then immediately rolled in the grass, making everyone laugh. Even enhanced, he was still a dog at heart. Dr. Peterson had brought a cake shaped like a snowman, and Jake told embarrassing stories about Emma's protective streak. The other enhanced dogs and their families came, creating a support network none of them had expected. As the sun set, Tommy stood to make an announcement. "I want to be a veterinarian," he declared, "but not just any vet. I want to help military dogs when they come home. Scout showed me that being brave doesn't mean you don't get scared or hurt. It means you keep loving people anyway." Scout walked over to Tommy, sitting beside him with obvious pride. The neural link might be strongest with Marcus, but the emotional bond with Tommy was something beyond science, beyond enhancement. It was pure love. That night, after everyone had gone home, Emma found Marcus sitting on her porch, Scout between them, the dog's head on Marcus's knee, but his body pressed against Tommy, who'd fallen asleep against his fur. "Thank you," Marcus said quietly, "for saving him when I couldn't, for loving him when I wasn't there." "He saved us first," Emma replied. "That morning, finding him by the melted snowman, I thought we were rescuing a dying dog. But Scout was on a mission. He was rescuing us right back." Marcus nodded, his hand gentle on Scout's head. The enhancement program wanted to create super soldiers, dogs that could think tactically, make complex decisions, even override their handlers if necessary. They succeeded beyond their wildest dreams. But what they didn't count on was that with greater intelligence comes greater capacity for choice. And Scout chose love over war, protection over aggression, family over orders. "He chose Tommy," Emma added softly. "He chose all of us," Marcus corrected. "That's what makes him remarkable. Not the enhancements, not the training, but his ability to see who needs him most and be exactly what they need." Scout's eyes opened, looking between them with that uncanny intelligence. His tail wagged once, agreeing with their assessment. A news van pulled up to the house, probably wanting a follow-up story for the anniversary. But before anyone could get out, Scout stood, his presence alone enough to make them reconsider. The van drove away, message received. This family story belonged to them, not the cameras. "He's still protecting us," Emma observed. "He always will," Marcus said. "It's not programming or training anymore. It's who he is." Tommy stirred, mumbling in his sleep. "Scout, good boy. Love you." The German shepherd's tail wagged harder, and he carefully adjusted his position to keep Tommy comfortable while maintaining contact with Marcus. The three-way bond, handler, child, and enhanced K9, created something unique in the world. As the months turned to years, Scout's story inspired changes in how military working dogs were treated, trained, and retired. The enhancement program's ethical violations led to strict new guidelines about animal experimentation. But more importantly, it opened discussions about consciousness, choice, and what we owe to the animals who serve alongside humans. Tommy grew, but his bond with Scout never weakened. If anything, it deepened. By the time he was 8, he could predict Scout's needs before the dog expressed them, and Scout could sense Tommy's emotional state from across a room. Marcus fully recovered, though he chose not to return to active duty. Instead, he worked with Major Stone to establish a new program, one that honored the intelligence and autonomy of military working dogs, while providing them with genuine career paths that included retirement and family placement. "Every dog deserves what Scout found," he said during a congressional hearing, "a soft landing, a loving home, and the freedom to choose their own mission in life." Scout attended the hearing, sitting quietly beside Tommy in the gallery. When Marcus finished speaking, the entire room erupted in applause, and Scout's tail wagged with pride for his handler, his partner, his friend. 5 years after the melted snowman, on another unusually warm winter morning, Tommy and Scout stood in the same spot where they'd first met. Tommy was 10 now, taller and more confident, but still the same gentle soul who'd offered a dying dog half his sandwich. "Do you ever think about it?" Tommy asked Scout. "How different everything would be if it hadn't gotten warm that night, if the snowman hadn't melted?" Scout looked up at the boy, then deliberately knocked over the new snowman Tommy had built, sending it tumbling into the same puddle where they'd met. Tommy laughed. "You're right. Some things are meant to melt. It makes room for better things to grow." They walked back to the house together, boy and dog, where Emma was making breakfast and Marcus was coming over with news about a young veteran who needed a service dog, one of Scout's trainees who was ready for placement. The kitchen was warm and full of laughter. Scout took his usual position where he could see all the exits, but also remain close to Tommy. His tactical training would never fully fade, but it had been transformed into something beautiful, vigilance born of love rather than fear. "Mom," Tommy said suddenly, "I want to tell Scout's story at school." The whole story. About the enhancement, the bad guys, everything. People should know that being different, being enhanced or special or whatever, it doesn't make you dangerous. It's what you choose to do. With it, that matters. Emma looked at Marcus, who nodded. "I think that's a wonderful idea, baby." Scout walked over to Tommy, sitting at attention, his approval clear. That afternoon, Tommy stood before his 5th grade class with Scout beside him. He told them about finding a dying dog by a melted snowman, about bravery and loyalty, about how sometimes the people, or dogs, who need the most help are the ones who end up helping us the most. Scout was made to be a weapon, Tommy concluded, his young voice strong and clear. But he chose to be a shield instead. He protects people not because he was programmed to, but because he loves us. And that's way more powerful than any enhancement. The class erupted in questions, hands shooting up everywhere. Scout handled the attention with patience, allowing children to pet him, demonstrating some of his training, but always keeping one eye on Tommy. One little girl, shy and sitting in the back, raised her hand tentatively. "My dad says military dogs are too dangerous to be pets. Is Scout dangerous?" Tommy thought about it seriously, then knelt beside Scout. "Scout is dangerous to anyone who tries to hurt the people he loves, but to us, to good people, he's the safest place in the world." As if to prove the point, Scout gently licked the little girl's outstretched hand, his tail wagging as she giggled. The teacher, Mrs. Rodriguez, had tears in her eyes. "Thank you, Tommy. And thank you, Scout. You've taught us all something important today about not judging based on fear or appearance, but on actions and character." That evening, as the family gathered for dinner, Marcus made an announcement. "I've been offered a position, director of the new K-9 Veterans Integration Program. It would mean traveling sometimes, working with enhanced dogs across the country, helping them transition to civilian life." "That's wonderful," Emma said, but she caught the uncertainty in his voice. "What's the catch?" Marcus looked at Scout. "They want Scout to come with me. As the program ambassador, it would mean time away from home." Tommy's face fell, but before he could protest, Scout stood and walked to Marcus, then back to Tommy, then to the exact midpoint between them. He sat, looking back and forth. "He's saying he can do both," Tommy translated. "He can help other dogs and still be our Scout." Marcus smiled. We'd only be gone a few days at a time. And Tommy could come during school breaks, help with the younger kids who need to understand these special dogs. "Really?" Tommy's eyes lit up. "The program needs someone who speaks Scout," Marcus said with a wink. "And nobody does that better than you." They worked out the details over the following weeks. Scout would travel with Marcus for short trips, helping enhanced and traditional military dogs adjust to retirement, but his home base would always be with Emma and Tommy. The arrangement was unconventional, like everything about Scout's story, but it worked. The first trip was to a facility in Texas where 3 enhanced dogs were struggling with the transition. Their handlers had been killed in action, and the dogs were shutting down, refusing to work with anyone new. Tommy insisted on coming, despite it being a school week. Emma couldn't argue when she saw how Scout perked up at the idea of Tommy joining the mission. At the facility, they found 3 German shepherds in separate kennels, all showing signs of severe depression. They had been enhanced like Scout but without the same level of success. Their intelligence was fractured, leaving them caught between instinct and reasoning. Scout approached each kennel slowly. and something remarkable happened. He began communicating with them in ways even Marcus couldn't fully understand. Not barks or whines, but subtle body language, ear positions, and something else. Perhaps the enhancement allowing them to share thoughts or emotions. "They're scared," Tommy said suddenly, watching the interaction. "They think they failed their handlers. They think that's why their people didn't come back." Marcus stared at the boy. "How could you possibly know that?" Tommy shrugged. "Scout's showing me. Not with words, but I can feel it." Over the next 3 days, Scout worked with each dog individually, while Tommy sat nearby, offering quiet reassurance. Gradually, the 3 dogs began responding, eating again, accepting human contact. On the last day, a family arrived to meet one of the dogs, a couple with a teenage son who'd lost his leg in a car accident and was struggling with depression. The enhanced dog, designated Atlas, had been unresponsive to all previous adoption attempts. But when the boy sat down in his wheelchair, Atlas immediately went to him, resting his great head on the boy's remaining knee. The connection was instant and profound. "He understands," the boy whispered, tears streaming down his face. "He knows what it's like to be broken, but still whole." Scout watched with what could only be described as satisfaction as Atlas went home with his new family, 1 down, 2 to go. The program was a success beyond anyone's imagination. Scout became legendary among the military dog community, not for his enhancements or his tactical achievements, but for his ability to heal other dogs and help them find their purpose after service. Tommy grew into his role as Scout's interpreter, developing an almost mystical ability to understand not just Scout, but all the enhanced dogs they worked with. Scientists wanted to study him, but Emma firmly refused. "Tommy's gift isn't something to be dissected in a lab," she said. "It's something to be nurtured and respected." By the time Tommy turned 13, he and Scout had helped relocate 37 military dogs, 12 of them enhanced. Each placement was a small miracle, a wounded warrior finding a new mission in protecting and loving a family who needed them. But Scout was aging. The enhancements that made him special also took a toll on his body. His muzzle grew gray, his steps slower, though his mind remained sharp as ever. One winter morning, exactly 8 years after they'd first met, Tommy found Scout in the backyard, lying in the exact spot where the snowman had melted all those years ago. The dog was still breathing, but barely responsive. "Mom!" Tommy's cry brought Emma running. They rushed Scout to Dr. Peterson, who ran every test, tried every treatment. But sometimes, even heroes reach the end of their mission. Marcus arrived within hours, the neural link having alerted him to Scout's condition from 3 states away. He sat on the clinic floor, Scout's head in his lap, while Tommy curled against the dog's side. "You did good, boy," Marcus whispered, tears flowing freely. "You completed every mission, saved every life that needed saving. You can rest now." But Scout wasn't ready. His eyes opened, focusing on Tommy with that familiar intensity. He struggled to his feet, shaking off their attempts to help, and walked slowly but steadily to the door. "He wants to go home," Tommy said. They brought Scout back to Emma's house, to the backyard where everything had begun. The whole family gathered: Jake, Doctor, Peterson, Major Stone, even some of the families Scout had helped over the years. As the sun set, Scout lay in Tommy's lap, his breathing labored, but his eyes peaceful. Tommy sang the same lullaby he'd hummed that first day, his voice breaking, but determined. "You're the best dog in the world," Tommy whispered. "You taught me how to be brave, how to help others, how to love without being afraid. I'll take care of the other dogs, I promise. I'll tell them about you." Scout's tail wagged once, weak but definite. His eyes found Marcus, then Emma, then returned to Tommy. In that gaze was all the love, loyalty, and intelligence that had made him extraordinary. As the first stars appeared in the sky, Scout closed his eyes for the last time, surrounded by the family he'd chosen, the people he'd saved, and the boy who'd offered him a sandwich when he had nothing left to give. The funeral was private but profound. Scout was buried in the backyard, in the spot where the snowman had melted, where their journey had begun. His military honors were placed in a shadow box in the living room, but his collar, the one marked Hero, friend, family, Tommy kept. The enhanced K9 program created a memorial in Scout's honor, but the real memorial was in the lives he'd changed. Every dog he'd helped transition, every family he'd brought together, every child who learned that different didn't mean dangerous. 6 months after Scout's passing, Tommy and Marcus stood before Congress again, this time advocating for the Scout Act, legislation that would guarantee lifetime care and family placement for all military working dogs. Scout showed us that enhancement isn't about creating weapons, Tommy said, now 13, but speaking with wisdom beyond his years. It's about expanding capacity for choice, for love, for sacrifice. Every military dog, enhanced or not, deserves the chance Scout had to choose their own mission after their service ends. The act passed unanimously. A year later, on a warm winter morning that reminded everyone of that fateful day, Tommy and Emma returned to the backyard. A new German Shepherd puppy, one of Scout's biological offspring from before his enhancement, played in the grass. "He's not Scout," Tommy said firmly. "No one could be Scout. But he carries part of him, the natural part, the part that was good before any enhancements." The puppy, named Hope, had the same intelligent eyes, the same protective instincts. But more importantly, she had been trained by the dog Scout had saved, carrying forward his legacy of choosing love over fear. Marcus visited often, the neural link he'd shared with Scout leaving an emptiness that would never fully heal. But watching Tommy work with Hope and the other dogs, he saw Scout's spirit living on. "He changed the world," Marcus said one evening, watching Tommy teach a group of children how to approach military dogs safely. Not through his enhancements or his training, but through his choices. Emma nodded, her eyes on her son, who had grown into a confident, compassionate young man. "He changed us first. That morning, when Tommy found him by the melted snowman, we thought we were saving a dog. But Scout was saving us, giving us purpose, showing us how to be brave." The enhancement program was officially discontinued, but Scout's true enhancement, his ability to choose love, to protect the innocent, to bring families together, that lived on in every dog he'd trained, every life he'd touched, every heart he'd healed. Years passed. Tommy became a veterinarian specializing in military and service dogs. Marcus continued running the integration program, with Scout's story as its foundation. Emma became an advocate for military families, understanding the unique challenges they faced. And in the backyard of the house on Willow Street, where a snowman had melted on an unusually warm winter morning, a garden grew. Not just any garden, but one filled with flowers planted by every family Scout had helped. It became a place of pilgrimage for those who knew the story, a reminder that sometimes the most profound changes come from the simplest acts of kindness. Tommy, now Dr. Thomas Morrison, would often bring struggling dogs to the garden. He'd tell them Scout's story, how a dying dog had chosen to trust a small boy, how that trust had rippled outward, changing laws, saving lives, healing hearts. "Scout taught us that being enhanced isn't about being more than others," he would say. "It's about choosing to be more for others. Every dog has that capacity, every person too. We just have to choose it." On the 10th anniversary of Scout's passing, a statue was unveiled at the Military Working Dog Memorial. Not a statue of Scout in tactical gear or attack position, but Scout lying peacefully, a small boy's hand resting on his head, both looking forward with hope and determination. The inscription read, "K9 Scout. He chose to protect, he chose to love, he chose us." At the dedication, hundreds gathered, military handlers with their dogs, families Scout had brought together, children who'd learned bravery from his story. Tommy, now with a family of his own, spoke about the morning that changed everything. A snowman melted, and in its place, something eternal grew. Scout showed us that love is the greatest enhancement, that choosing to protect the innocent is the highest calling, and that sometimes the smallest acts of kindness can change the world. As he spoke, a warm breeze swept through the crowd, unusual for December. Several people swore they heard a familiar bark on the wind, saw a shadow that looked like a German shepherd standing guard. Whether it was real or imagination didn't matter. Scout's spirit, his mission, his choice to love, despite everything, lived on in every act of kindness, every moment of bravery, every time someone chose protection over aggression. The melted snowman had long since been forgotten by most. But for those who knew the story, it was a reminder that sometimes things need to melt, to change, to transform, to make room for something greater. And in a small house on Willow Street, where a boy had once found a dying dog and offered him half a sandwich, Hope's puppies played in the yard, each one carrying a piece of Scout's legacy forward. Not his enhancements, but something far more powerful. The ability to choose love, even when the world had given you every reason not to. Marcus, gray-haired now, but still strong, watched the puppies with Tommy's children, teaching them the same lessons Scout had taught. Every dog is special, he told them. But the most special ones are the ones who choose to love us back. Like Scout? The youngest asked. Exactly like Scout, Marcus confirmed, his hand unconsciously moving to his chest, where the neural link had once connected him to his partner. The connection was gone, but the love remained, eternal and unbreakable. As the sun set on the anniversary gathering, Tommy stood in his mother's backyard, now his backyard, with his own children. The Garden Scout's garden was in full bloom despite the season, as if nature itself remembered and honored the dog who'd changed so many lives. Dad, his daughter asked, do you think Scout knew? When you found him that morning, do you think he knew what would happen? Tommy thought about it, remembering those intelligent brown eyes, the way Scout had trusted him despite everything. I think, he said slowly, Scout knew what mattered. Not the future, but the moment. He knew a little boy needed a friend, he knew he needed help, and he knew that sometimes that's enough. Being brave enough to trust, to love, to choose each other, that's enough to change everything. His daughter nodded solemnly, then ran off to play. With Hope's grand puppies, the legacy continuing, the choice to love being made again and again. Emma, watching from the kitchen window, smiled. The scared, exhausted woman who'd found her son in the mud with a dying dog was gone. In her place stood someone Scout had helped create, someone brave, someone who understood that family wasn't just about blood, but about choice. Thank you, Scout, she whispered to the evening air, for choosing us, for teaching us to choose each other. Somewhere, perhaps, a German Shepherd's spirit wagged its tail, mission complete, but never truly over. Because every time someone chose love over fear, protection over aggression, family over solitude, Scout's mission continued. The melted snowman had started it all, a simple casualty of unexpected warmth. But what grew from that puddle of water was a forest of connection, understanding, and love that would shade generations to come. In the end, Scout's greatest enhancement wasn't anything the military had done to him. It was his heart, brave enough to trust a small boy with a sandwich, strong enough to carry them all through danger, and big enough to change the world, one choice at a time. The story of the German Shepherd who was found shivering beside a melted snowman became legend, told in military barracks and family homes, in training facilities and children's bedrooms. But for Tommy, for Marcus, for Emma, and for everyone who'd been touched by Scout's courage, it wasn't just a story. It was proof that love is the most powerful force in the universe, that choosing to protect the innocent is the highest calling, and that sometimes, on a warm winter morning, when everything seems to be melting away, something extraordinary can begin. Something like a dying dog and a brave little boy finding each other. Something like a family being born from loss and hope. Something like Scout. If this story touched your heart, if Scout's journey reminded you of the power of compassion and the unbreakable bonds between humans and animals, please like and share this video. Let others experience the incredible tale of a military dog who chose love over duty, family over orders, and changed countless lives in the process. Comment below and tell us where you're watching from. Share your own stories of remarkable animals who've touched your lives, of unexpected friendships that changed everything, of moments when kindness transformed tragedy into triumph. Subscribe to our channel for more powerful stories of courage, loyalty, and love that transcend species and circumstances. Hit the notification bell so you never miss a tale that might restore your faith in the goodness that exists in this world, even in the darkest moments. Remember Scout's legacy? That being different isn't dangerous, that choosing love is the bravest thing you can do, and that sometimes a melted snowman is just the beginning of something beautiful. Thank you for joining us on this emotional journey. Until next time, may you find your own Scout, or perhaps may you be someone else's. Like, share, subscribe, and always choose love.